We talked about runs. Obviously, that Rafael Leao run is gonna live on YouTube forever.
Yeah.
Now, what I thought was interesting about obviously it starts with a distraction of Ndombele who doesn't control the ball, and again, Zambonguis is there. This wouldn't have come into play. One of the things that strikes me about this is when we're having the discussion on the show, and Moreno's like, well, why don't they just foul him? And yeah, it's a logical thing to do, right? We've gotten so accustomed to tactical fouls where you see this guy running, and whether it's Di Lorenzo, I mean, Rahmani was,
that's a pen.
That wasn't about that. Yeah, you're not going to do that. And Ndombele keeps chasing him, but just is obviously never going to catch him. Right? I think actually Greg Burley said, there's not a player in the world who's going to catch him. And I said, well, maybe if Mbappe plays right back.
Exactly.
I'd like to see that foot race, But it did strike me, I mean, hindsight always 2020. Should Di Lorenzo have just grabbed him? Because there are some teams that have made us I mean, City get a lot of stick for this, for the tactical foul. They do it a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't even give away a card there because there's players behind. I don't want to see that. I'd love to see more yellows for those tactical fouls, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think even Ndombele should at some point try.
You can't catch him.
But just tackle him from behind, not from behind, but try something. No, but not in a nasty way.
Maybe do a Harry Maguire, where he jumps on.
Or Cristiano the other night. But yeah, you think if you remember the first leg when Napoli started so well at San Siro, and then there's that run that Leao does, and he shoots with his left, and it's just wide. And after that, Napoli almost unconsciously drops 30 yards because every time he was going to get the ball, they were so scared of something. Right. And then maybe they were not prepared enough in a cynical way for this second leg to know, do you know what? Whatever it takes, stop him before he hits our 30-yard line or something like that. Whatever it takes, whoever is in that zone has to stop him. And yeah, maybe they were kind of either a bit naive or just too nice not to make that foul. But yeah, you're right. It's crazy that he's allowed that kind of game between two teams that know each other so well, and that that Leao can offer that threat, that you don't almost have a plan straight away. He touches the ball, you can see he's on the run, foul him straight away.
Which is not what you want to see as a fan. But if the rules allow it, then...
Exactly.
Now, the interesting thing with Leao is, we've touched upon this before, his contract expires in June 2024. Milan have been negotiating a new deal for a long, long time. The latest is that they're confident. He's come out. He said the right things. But, until the deal gets done.
Yeah.
Obviously, complicating this whole thing is the fact that he has to pay Sporting because of what happened when he left the club. 20 million. There's a very complicated legal case. It also involves Lille.
Yeah.
Lille might have to pay compensation too. The reality is, if Milan keep Leao, leaving aside how much they pay him, we'll get to that in a second. They also don't know if at some point a judge is going to say, hey, you guys owe Sporting some money. So, for example, one scenario is if Milan were to sell him this summer, right? Say all right, no, we can't reach a new deal, or he wants too much money. We sell him. I think it would easily go for 80, 100 million. Yeah. If Antony goes for 100 million, I would assume this guy would. And then maybe later along comes Sporting and says, well, he had a 45 million release clause when he was with us. He terminated his contract unilaterally. They found that there was no just cause for him to terminate his contract. And by the way, the reason he terminated his contract, along with other players like Jesús Martins and others, was a bunch of fans came into the training ground, beat up staff and players. He argued that they were somehow incited by the club president at the time, didn't feel safe, whatnot. And so Tribunal said he was right originally. That's why he moved to Lille. Lille then, after a year, sold him to Milan. So that's the whole background to it. This case is still not resolved, 4.5 years later? So there's this whole level of uncertainty to it from Milan's perspective, which I think is one of the things slowing it down. What we know right now is, I think it's 1/5 of his paycheck goes into a special fund to pay. Now, unless he plays until he's 60 or he gets a new deal, he's not going to be able to pay that money back.
So someone will have to pay it.
Somebody will have to pay it. Right now, I think his contract, right now he earns, I think, less than 3 million, which is a puny amount for what he contributes. This is a guy who's been double figures the last 2 years from a wide position, which I don't think is, I think is pretty darn good. But I think there's a sense with Leao that either he maintains that level that he shows in his best moments, and he does that consistently, and then he becomes Thierry Henry, let's say. Or, an off-brand Mbappe, if you want. Or he becomes Martial. He becomes somebody who can do it occasionally, but most of the time he's got issues, he's injured, doesn't do much off the ball, and so on. I mean, that's kind of the two ways. And Milan have to decide which way it's just going to go, because his new deal
He's still so young, though.
He's not that young. That's what I thought. He's been young for a long time. He's one of those guys who's been young for a long time.
As in he's still young, like...
He's 24.
Yeah, but they're still, in a way, he might not have come, to proper maturity yet. But it seems that when he wants to, and maybe it's also a question of the lack of motivation maybe from Milan in the league because they can't win the title anymore. I don't know. So you need to play for top 4, and right now your top 4 place for next season is not guaranteed unless you won the Champions League. I don't know, because he also seemed that in the Napoli away game in the league, he turned it up. In the Napoli 2 ties in the Champions League, 2 games in the Champions League, he turned it up. So it seems also is the inconsistency because he doesn't really
I think the inconsistency
or is it mentally?
I think some of his critics say that off the ball, it's not that he doesn't work as hard as he should defensively. It's that his mind wanders. He's not as tactically disciplined defensively. He's not as crisp in his pressing. And look, this is an important part of the game, right? Wingers are defenders when they're off the ball.
And he did defend okay in that game.
Yeah, but, I mean, again, to go back to your friend Mbappe, we saw he did almost no defensive work in the World Cup final. There's even less in Paris Saint-Germain. So I think, to some degree, it also depends on the team, on what you want from him, on what he can, on what he can deliver. Are you to talk about the other, I thought, standout game changer here? And he saved the penalty in this one. In the first leg, he made a tremendous save at the end of the game. He does this again.
In the first leg.
Magic Mike Maignan. I know you're tight with your boy Hugo Lloris, World Cup winning captain and everything. But you're in good hands,
Oh, man. And he's Paris born and bred as well. So I love him even more. And he's only 27 years old. And right now, he's already, for me, top 5 on this season. Top 5 in the world, top 5 in Europe if you want. Maybe even top 3. It's Courtois, him, and then find whoever the third is that you want.
Ter Stegen.
Maybe, although not so much in Europe. But I think outstanding. Again, we go back on the transfer fee. To think that Milan paid 15 million euros, which is 1.5, is incredible. Really, it is. 18 months, or almost 2 years ago now. He had a wonderful impact to replace Donnarumma. Maybe more than anybody thought.
And that's pretty critical, because I want to go back to that just for a second. It's one of the things I touch upon. If you go back to where Milan were at the time with Donnarumma, you had a situation where in Donnarumma you had a guy who had been a starter since he was 16 years old, which is just unbelievable for a goalkeeper, right? It was a time when the club was in turmoil. Elliott had taken over. Things were up, things were down. The fans were unhappy. It seemed like, the easiest thing to do would be like, all right, we're not going to worry about the goalkeeper. Lock in Donnarumma. He'll be our captain forever. He'll retire. He'll break Maldini's records and
Buffon,
whatever.
etc.
At the time, his agent was the late Mino Raiola, and he already had a huge contract, which the Muppets who ran the club before Elliott gave him. And so once, you're always going to get a raise in football, right?
Yeah, of course.
So at that point, we were talking a contract that he was asking for 20 million a year for a guy who at the time was 22 years old.
Yeah.
And Milan said, no, we have a red line here. We have a red line that we're not going to cross. And if Donnarumma wants to leave on a free transfer, he can do that. And they were criticized by a lot of people for it. That took a big step. That showed discipline. I think that also sent a message to agents and so on. We're not going to be taken advantage of here. So I think that was a big step.
It was. And when you replace him with someone like Mike, who is doing so well for you, then you probably feel pretty happy if you are not. Because there's the penalty save, and he's one of the best, if not the best penalty saver right now in Europe. I think he's... I think 40% of the penalties against him are missed. Whether he saves them...
That's a ridiculous amount, 40%.
I think 37%. I looked this morning. incredible, really, and he's strong, he's tall, the jump, I mean, he's just incredible, and then there's the distribution of the part of his game that, because he used to be an outfield player when he was growing up in Paris, he's got that ability to control the ball well, to pass the ball well, short, long, all of that, which is very, very valuable for a lot of managers.
Yeah, and I think that's also maybe part of the reason why that's obviously not a strong part of Donnarumma's game.
Yeah,
that's also part of the reason they felt okay with it. Again, it's still a massive gamble, taking a guy from Lille who, he'd won the title, but
completely, man.
Paris Saint-Germain had decided he wasn't good enough.
Exactly. Certainly at the time, they felt he was.
They moved him on. So that's certainly one that's worked out.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.